New Yorkers, they're rude, they're crude, they don't give you any time, no one's friendly when you walk down the street. I don't get that.
No,
I don't
it's
get
not
that at
true.
all. I actually love the
That's a huge
people.
misconception,
It's a huge
yeah.
misconception. When we walk down the street, I love how friendly people are to us.
For millions of fans around the world, Drew Scott is the smiling, quick-witted half of the beloved Property Brothers duo. Alongside his identical twin, Jonathan, Drew has transformed countless homes and inspired viewers with his charm, optimism, and seemingly boundless energy. But behind the scenes, Drew's journey has been marked by heartbreak, loss, and a series of personal challenges that few could have imagined. The story of Drew Scott is not just one of television success, but of resilience in the face of tragedy. A reminder that even those who seem to have it all are not immune to life's most painful moments. Drew Scott was born on April 28, 1978, in Vancouver, Canada, just 4 minutes before his brother Jonathan. From the very beginning, the Scott twins were inseparable, sharing not only a birthday, but a deep bond that would shape their lives and careers. Their parents, Jim and Joanne Scott, encouraged their sons to dream big and work hard, instilling in them the values of perseverance, kindness, and family above all else. The boys grew up on a ranch in Maple Ridge, British Columbia, where they learned the value of teamwork, responsibility, and the importance of supporting one another through thick and thin. As children, Drew and Jonathan were full of ambition and creativity. They started their first business at the age of 7, making and selling wire hangers to neighbors. By the time they were teenagers, they had already begun buying, renovating, and selling homes, a passion that would eventually become the foundation of their hit TV show. But even as their star began to rise, the Scott family faced challenges that would test their strength and unity. One of the earliest tragedies to strike the Scott family was the loss of their beloved grandfather. Drew was just a teenager when his grandfather passed away, leaving a void that would never fully heal. The loss was especially hard on Drew, who had always looked up to his grandfather as a source of wisdom and comfort. In interviews, Drew has spoken candidly about the pain of losing someone so close, and how it taught him to cherish every moment with loved ones. The experience would later influence his approach to life and work, reminding him that success means little without the people you love by your side. As Drew and Jonathan pursued their dreams, they encountered setbacks and disappointments that would have discouraged many. Their early attempts to break into the entertainment industry were met with rejection after rejection. Drew, who had aspirations of becoming an actor, struggled to find steady work and often questioned whether he was on the right path. The brothers faced financial difficulties, living on a shoestring budget and taking odd jobs to make ends meet. But through it all, they leaned on each other, drawing strength from their unbreakable bond. The turning point came when the brothers decided to combine their talents. Drew's expertise in real estate and Jonathan's skills as a contractor, to create a show that would change the face of home renovation television. Property Brothers premiered in 2011 and quickly became a sensation, catapulting Drew and Jonathan to international fame. The show's success brought new opportunities, but it also brought new pressures and challenges. The demands of filming, travel, and constant public attention took a toll on Drew's personal life, straining relationships and leaving little time for self-care. Behind the scenes, Drew was quietly struggling with anxiety and the weight of expectations. The pressure to maintain a perfect image, to always be upbeat and positive, became overwhelming at times. Drew has since opened up about his battles with mental health, sharing that there were days when he felt completely drained and alone, despite being surrounded by fans and loved ones. The stigma around mental health made it difficult for him to seek help, But eventually, he realized that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a strength. Through therapy, support from family, and a commitment to self-care, Drew began to find his footing again. He became an advocate for mental health awareness, using his platform to encourage others to speak openly about their struggles. But just as he was beginning to heal, another tragedy would strike, one that would test his resilience in ways he could never have anticipated. The next chapter in Drew Scott's life would bring both the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. As Property Brothers soared in popularity, Drew's personal life seemed to be following a similar upward trajectory. He met Linda Fan, a creative director with a passion for design and a heart as big as his own. Their whirlwind romance quickly became a source of joy and stability for Drew, who often described Linda as his rock and his best friend. The couple's love story, filled with laughter, adventure, and mutual support, became a favorite among fans, who watched eagerly as Drew proposed in a fairy tale setting, and the two began planning their dream wedding. But even as Drew and Linda celebrated their engagement, tragedy was never far from their minds. During this period, Drew's mother, Joanne, was diagnosed with a serious illness. The news was devastating for the entire Scott family, who had always been incredibly close. Drew, who had always relied on his mother's wisdom and encouragement, found himself grappling with fear and uncertainty. He spent countless hours at her side, supporting her through treatments and doing everything he could to keep her spirits high. The experience was a stark reminder of how fragile life can be, and it forced Drew to confront the reality that even the strongest families are not immune to suffering. Throughout his mother's illness, Drew continued to film Property Brothers, often flying back and forth between work commitments and family obligations. The pressure was immense, but Drew refused to let his personal struggles affect his work. He poured his energy into helping families find their dream homes, using his own pain as motivation to bring joy to others. Behind the scenes, however, the emotional toll was mounting. Drew has since spoken about the guilt he felt for not always being able to be there for his mother, and the anxiety that came with trying to balance his career and his family's needs. In the midst of this turmoil, Drew and Linda's wedding day finally arrived. The ceremony, held in Italy, was a beautiful celebration of love, family, and resilience. Surrounded by friends and loved ones, Drew felt a sense of hope and renewal. For a brief moment, the worries and heartache faded away, replaced by the promise of a new beginning. But even as he exchanged vows with Linda, Drew knew that life's challenges were far from over. Shortly after the wedding, Drew's mother's condition worsened. The Scott family rallied around her, cherishing every moment and drawing strength from one another. Drew, who had always been the optimist, struggled to maintain his trademark positivity. He found solace in Linda's unwavering support and in the love of his family. But the pain of watching his mother suffer was almost unbearable. The experience brought back memories of losing his grandfather and reminded Drew of the importance of cherishing every moment with those you love. As his mother's health declined, Drew began to reflect on the lessons she had taught him about kindness, perseverance, and the importance of giving back. He realized that, even in the face of tragedy, there was still room for gratitude and hope. Drew became more involved in charitable work, using his platform to raise awareness for causes close to his heart, including cancer research and mental health advocacy. He spoke openly about his family's struggles, hoping to inspire others to reach out for help and to support one another through difficult times. The loss of his mother was a devastating blow, one that left Drew reeling. For months, he struggled to find meaning in his work and to reconnect with the joy that had once defined his life. The grief was overwhelming, but Drew refused to let it consume him. With the support of Linda, Jonathan, and the rest of his family, he slowly began to heal. He channeled his pain into his work, creating homes that were not just beautiful, but filled with love and warmth. A tribute to the values his mother had instilled in him. Through it all, Drew Scott's resilience shone through. He emerged from tragedy with a deeper sense of empathy, a renewed commitment to his family, and a determination to use his platform for good. But just as he began to find his footing again, another unexpected challenge would test his strength in ways he could never have imagined. In the wake of his mother's passing, Drew Scott found himself navigating a world that felt both familiar and utterly changed. The loss had left a void that nothing could fill, and even the comfort of his work on Property Brothers could not fully distract him from the ache in his heart. Yet, as he had done so many times before, Drew leaned on his family, his wife Linda, and his brother Jonathan, drawing strength from their love and support. Together, they honored their mother's memory by continuing to live the values she had taught them: kindness, generosity, and the importance of family above all. But just as Drew began to find a new sense of balance, another storm was brewing. This time, the challenge would come not from within his family, but from the pressures of fame and the relentless scrutiny of the public eye. As Property Brothers continued to dominate the world of home renovation television, Drew and Jonathan found themselves at the center of a media frenzy. Rumors and tabloid headlines swirled, speculating about their personal lives, their business dealings, and even their relationship as brothers. For Drew, the constant attention was both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, he was grateful for the opportunities that fame had brought: the chance to help families, to travel the world, and to build a life with Linda that he had always dreamed of. On the other hand, the loss of privacy and the pressure to maintain a perfect public image became overwhelming. Every decision, every word, every social media post was scrutinized and dissected by fans and critics alike. The weight of expectation was crushing, and Drew often felt as though he was living under a microscope. The stress began to take a toll on Drew's mental and physical health. He struggled with insomnia, anxiety, and bouts of depression, all while trying to keep up with the demands of filming, travel, and public appearances. Linda, ever the supportive partner, encouraged Drew to prioritize his well-being, reminding him that it was okay to step back and take care of himself. With her encouragement, Drew began to set boundaries, limiting his exposure to social media and carving out time for rest and reflection. Despite these efforts, the challenges kept coming. In 2020, as the world grappled with the COVID-19 pandemic, Drew and Jonathan were forced to halt production on their shows and adapt to a new reality. The uncertainty of the moment, combined with the grief of his mother's passing and the pressures of fame, created a perfect storm of stress and anxiety. Drew worried about the future of his business, the health of his family, and the well-being of his team. The sense of responsibility was immense, and there were days when the burden felt almost too heavy to bear. Yet, even in the darkest moments, Drew refused to give up. He leaned into his work, finding solace in the act of creating beautiful, functional spaces for families in need. He and Jonathan launched virtual consultations, connecting with clients and fans from around the world, and offering advice and encouragement. During a time of unprecedented uncertainty, Drew also became more vocal about his own struggles, using his platform to advocate for mental health awareness and to remind others that it was okay to ask for help. Drew's advocacy for mental health and grief support continued to grow. He launched new initiatives aimed at providing resources for those struggling with loss, including online support groups, educational workshops, and partnerships with mental health professionals. He used his public platform to speak openly about the importance of seeking help, breaking down barriers, and supporting one another through life's toughest moments. Drew's willingness to share his own vulnerabilities made him a trusted voice in the conversation around mental health, and his efforts helped countless people find the courage to reach out for support. At home, Drew and Linda continued to nurture their relationship, finding joy in the simple moments of everyday life. Whether it was cooking dinner together, taking long walks, or planning future adventures, they cherished the time they had and made a conscious effort to stay present and connected. Their journey to start a family was ongoing, filled with hope and uncertainty, but they faced it together, drawing strength from their love and the lessons they had learned along the way. Drew's relationship with Jonathan also remained a cornerstone of his life. The brothers, who had been through so much together, found new ways to support and challenge each other, both personally and professionally. Their bond, forged in childhood and tested by tragedy, was stronger than ever. Together, they continued to dream big, taking on new projects and exploring new opportunities, always with an eye toward making a positive impact in the world. As Drew looked back on the heartbreaks and triumphs of his life, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. The pain of loss had taught him to appreciate the beauty of each day, to hold his loved ones close, and to never take a single moment for granted. He understood that life would always bring new challenges, but he faced the future with hope, knowing that he had the strength and support to overcome whatever came his way. The story of Drew Scott is a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of vulnerability, and the healing force of love. Through every tragedy, he found a way to turn pain into purpose, using his experiences to help others and to build a legacy that would endure long after the cameras stopped rolling. His journey reminds us all that, no matter how dark the night, there is always the promise of a new dawn, and that even in the face of heartbreak, it is possible to find meaning, connection, and joy. As fans continue to watch Drew and Jonathan transform houses into homes, they see more than just renovations. They see a story of hope, healing, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Drew's willingness to share his struggles and triumphs has made him not just a television star, but a beacon of light for anyone facing their own battles. And as he continues to move forward, Drew Scott's legacy will be one of compassion, courage, and the unwavering belief that, even in the midst of tragedy, life is still worth living to the fullest. Through it all, Drew's relationship with Linda remained a source of strength and comfort. The couple faced their own challenges, including the heartbreak of fertility struggles and the pain of public speculation about their family plans. Drew spoke candidly about the difficulties they faced, hoping to break the stigma around infertility and to offer support to others going through similar experiences. The vulnerability and honesty that Drew and Linda shared with the world only deepened the admiration of their fans, who saw in them a reflection of their own hopes, fears, and dreams. As Drew continued to navigate the ups and downs of life in the spotlight, he never lost sight of what truly mattered. The tragedies he had endured had taught him the importance of resilience, compassion, and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. But just as he began to feel a sense of peace, another unexpected loss would remind him that life's challenges are never truly over. The next tragedy to strike Drew Scott's life was one that would shake him to his core and test the very foundation of his resilience. In the midst of juggling the demands of his career, his marriage, and his ongoing advocacy for mental health, Drew received the devastating news that a close friend, someone he had known since childhood, had passed away unexpectedly. The loss was sudden and shocking, leaving Drew reeling with grief and disbelief. This friend had been a constant presence in Drew's life, a confidant who had celebrated his successes and supported him through his darkest days. Their bond was forged in the innocence of youth and had endured the challenges of adulthood, fame, and distance. Losing someone so close, especially after the recent loss of his mother, felt like a cruel twist of fate. Drew found himself grappling with a wave of emotions: anger, sadness, guilt, and a profound sense of emptiness. The pain of this loss was compounded by the fact that, as a public figure, Drew felt compelled to keep his grief private. He worried about burdening his fans or appearing vulnerable at a time when so many looked to him for inspiration. But Linda, ever his anchor, encouraged him to honor his friend's memory by sharing his feelings honestly. With her support, Drew opened up about his grief, both privately with loved ones and publicly with his audience. He spoke about the importance of cherishing friendships, reaching out to those you care about, and never taking a single moment for granted. The response from fans was immediate and overwhelming. Messages of sympathy, support, and shared stories of loss poured in from around the world. Drew realized that, in sharing his pain, he was helping others feel less alone in their own struggles. The experience deepened his commitment to mental health advocacy, and he began working with organizations focused on grief support and suicide prevention. He used his platform to encourage open conversations about loss, healing, and the importance of seeking help when needed. Despite the outpouring of support, the road to healing was long and difficult. Drew struggled with feelings of guilt, wondering if there was more he could have done to help his friend. He replayed their last conversations in his mind, searching for signs he might have missed. The weight of regret was heavy, but Drew gradually learned to forgive himself and to focus on honoring his friend's legacy through kindness and action. During this period, Drew also leaned heavily on his brother Jonathan. The twins had always shared a unique bond, but the tragedies they had endured brought them even closer. Jonathan became Drew's sounding board, his source of laughter, and his reminder that, even in the darkest times, there is still light to be found. Together, they continued to work on Property Brothers, finding solace in the creative process and in the joy of helping others build new beginnings. Drew's journey through grief also inspired him to reconnect with old friends and to prioritize relationships that had been neglected in the whirlwind of fame and work. He made a conscious effort to reach out, to listen, and to be present for those he cared about. The experience taught him that life is fragile and unpredictable, and that the most important thing we can do is to love fiercely and without reservation. As Drew slowly emerged from the shadow of loss, he found a renewed sense of purpose. He poured his energy into new projects, including writing a book about resilience and the lessons he had learned from tragedy. He continued to advocate for mental health, using his story to inspire others to seek help and to support one another through life's inevitable hardships. But even as Drew began to heal, he knew that the journey was far from over. Life, he had learned, is a series of ups and downs, joys and sorrows, beginnings and endings. The tragedies he had faced had changed him forever, but they had also given him a deeper appreciation for the beauty and fragility of every moment. As Drew Scott continued to move forward, the lessons of loss and resilience became woven into every aspect of his life. The tragedies he had endured, losing his grandfather, his mother, and his childhood friend, had left scars, but they had also given him a profound sense of empathy and a renewed commitment to living with intention. Drew began to see his role on Property Brothers, not just as a job, but as a calling, a chance to bring hope, comfort, and inspiration to others who might be facing their own struggles. Drew's openness about his journey resonated deeply with fans. He received countless messages from viewers who shared their own stories of heartbreak and healing, and he made a point of responding whenever he could. Whether it was a handwritten note, a social media reply, or a quiet conversation at a public event, Drew took the time to connect with people on a personal level. He understood that, for many, the simple act of being seen and heard could make all the difference. This sense of connection extended to his work with Jonathan as well. The brothers became more intentional about the projects they took on, choosing to work with families who had experienced loss or hardship. They listened to their clients' stories, offered words of encouragement, and created spaces that were not just beautiful, but healing. For Drew, every renovation was an opportunity to honor the memory of those he had lost and to pay forward the kindness he had received during his darkest days. Drew also found solace in creativity. He began writing more journals, essays, and eventually a book that chronicled his journey through grief and recovery. The process was both cathartic and challenging, forcing him to confront painful memories, but also allowing him to celebrate the moments of joy and growth that had come from adversity. The book, when it was finally published, became a bestseller, touching the lives of readers around the world and further cementing Drew's reputation as not just a television personality, but a voice for hope and resilience. Through it all, Linda remained Drew's steadfast partner. Their marriage, tested by tragedy and the pressures of public life, grew stronger with each challenge they faced together. The couple continued to dream of starting a family, and while the journey was not without its difficulties, they approached it with the same determination and optimism that had defined their relationship from the start. Drew often spoke about the importance of leaning on loved ones, of asking for help when needed, and of never giving up on the possibility of happiness. Even in the face of heartbreak, Drew's advocacy for mental health and grief support also expanded. He partnered with organizations to create resources for those struggling with loss, and he used his platform to raise awareness about the importance of seeking help. He spoke at conferences, participated in charity events, and even launched a podcast where he interviewed guests about their own experiences with adversity and healing. Through these efforts, Drew hoped to break the stigma around mental health and to create a community where people could find support and understanding. As Drew approached his mid-40s, he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. The pain of loss was still there, but it no longer defined him. Instead, it had become a source of strength, a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. Drew knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but he faced the future with a sense of hope and gratitude that had been hard. 1. The story of Drew Scott is not just one of tragedy, but of transformation. Through heartbreak, he discovered his true purpose: to use his experiences to help others, to build not just houses, but homes filled with love, and to remind the world that even in the darkest times, there is always a way forward. But as Drew would soon learn, life's journey is never truly complete, and the next chapter was waiting just around the corner. As Drew Scott stepped into the next chapter of his life, he did so with a sense of peace and purpose that could only come from having weathered life's most difficult storms. The tragedies he had endured had changed him, but they had also revealed the depth of his resilience and the strength of the bonds he shared with those he loved. Drew's journey was no longer defined by loss, but by the ways in which he had chosen to rise above it, by the lives he touched, the hope he inspired, and the legacy he was building, both on and off the screen. With each new season of Property Brothers, Drew brought a renewed sense of empathy and understanding to his work. He and Jonathan continued to help families transform their homes, but the show had evolved into something more than just a renovation series. It became a platform for sharing stories of perseverance, healing, and the power of community. Drew made it a point to highlight the personal journeys of the families they worked with, often drawing parallels to his own experiences with grief and recovery. The result was a show that resonated on a deeper level, offering comfort and inspiration to viewers facing their own challenges.